So, Colin, do you think that might play a little bit into the kinds of games that women pick and what they play on a daily basis?
It depends from woman to woman. There's no one way to decide that. But in general, I'd say yes.
You're saying that the fact that a woman thinks more on an emotional level would affect how they, with the kinds of games they pick and how long they play them.
How long they play them, maybe. But how they pick, I don't see how an emotional choice would impact in choosing a game to play.
Okay, Colin, do you know what is classified as the four parts of any game?
Not off the top of my head.
You wouldn't? Okay, simply put, we have graphics, which are how the game looks. Does it look good? Does it look bad? What kind of art style does it have? You have sound, which is basically the audio of the game. Sound effects, music, voice acting, if there is any. You have story, which is, of course, the writing. Why everything is happening, where it's happening, all that. And then you have the programming, which is pretty much everything else, mainly referred to as gameplay, which is the type of gameplay it has. Does the game maybe have a currency system? Does it have a leveling system? That sort of thing. All right. Now, do you think what kind of trait do you think that women, based on their emotional mental state, what do you think? What trait of a game do you think that women would gravitate more towards?
Um, Graphics.
You
I
say
mean, this isn't just with women. When you look at a game and you see that it's pretty, you're definitely more appealed to play it. That goes with anybody, including myself.
Well, of course, that applies to men as well. But besides perhaps graphics, do you think there's maybe some other element of a video game that a woman would like, or perhaps enjoy more than the other?
Writing, maybe.
The story, you
Yeah,
mean?
some people have more appreciation for story because have to write it and you're more emotionally built to the characters that it develops.
Okay, it's been proven that out of every seven men in a particular gaming group, there's probably one woman to balance that out, and women, on average, have been shown to gravitate more towards RPGs. Can you explain real quick what an RPG is?
As basically, it abbreviates to role playing game, but the object is to raise a character or a party of characters through a leveling system, taking them on an adventure that it usually is much longer than other games.
How long are we talking here? How long is an average game, and how long is an RPG?
Um, Nowadays, an average game can get about 200 to 300 hours. An RPG can take well over 1,000.
Okay, very well. Now, why do you think women gravitate more towards RPGs? Wouldn't you agree that the general mechanics of an RPG are generally much simpler than a game series like, say, Assassin's Creed?
Yes, definitely more accessible. There's not too much control going on except moving around and selecting commands.
Very true. Now, something to know with RPGs is that the main focus of almost any RPG is the story. Don't
Correct.
you agree? That's why RPGs have such little programming. That's why they don't have a whole lot of control from the user. They're mainly showing off the story that they've written. Correct?
Correct.
That's why but they also need to have some sort of showing of progress. Otherwise, just running around and fighting, whatever you're fighting, doesn't really show a whole lot of progress. So that's why they throw in the leveling system. Do you think that there are plenty of men out there who can get involved in RPGs, even though it's predominantly a woman-based game genre?
Take a look in the mirror. There's all kinds of people who like RPGs, and you can't necessarily define one genre to one gender.
You don't think you can do that?
No.
You don't think it's possible to perhaps associate one gender with one genre? Maybe perhaps they don't hold a monopoly over it, but let's say that they do instead hold a fair amount of the ownership or the buying power of that genre. Do you think that it would be at all possible to attribute a gender to that?
Maybe. I'll
That
give a definite maybe on that. Because on one hand, you have something that would tell you just defining that would seem like an arbitrary thing to do and would disgrace some of the people who aren't that gender but play those games. But on the other hand, you're right. There's no way to deny that certain genders have certain buying power on certain games.
Very well. Now, something that's also come up within the gaming industry is the fact that there aren't a whole lot of women making games. Why do you think that is?
Programming and computer-based jobs, which is mainly what game development is, has never been particularly dominated by women. It is a primarily male field.
Why do you think that is?
Coming back to your earlier statement, a lot of programming in computers is logical thinking. However, staff such as teachers, emotional care workers, healthcare, involve a lot more social things, which tend to involve emotional things. Emotional reactions, responses. Men would be more typicated to go into that field that includes logic than one that includes emotions.
So what you're basically saying is that because programming is based so much in the thinking power and logical thinking of the programmer, it depends on it can actually be misconstrued as boring in a way. Wouldn't you say that? I know you can do programming, but you're not very fond of it.
No, I find it boring.
Okay, do you think that may actually attribute to women being unable to break... First of all, do you think that women are unwelcome within a gaming industry? Do you think that they would be cast away if they proved that they were able to handle a job and that they could logically perform that job just as well as a man could?
One hand of me would say they'd be driven away just because of the standards we've built around the gaming industry. But another hand on me says it's not fair to assume that out of an entire industry. Maybe subgenres might not be as welcoming, but it's certainly not fair to say that the entire industry would be like that.